I want to show you this video that Stephen A posted.
Bulbasaur, whatever the hell it is, Charmander, or the Squirtle. These are Pokemons, I guess that's what it is. I'm gonna say, you know what I'm gonna say? Charmander. That's who I would take, because it reminds me of me because of the forehead.
Stephen A is arguably the greatest sports entertainer of all time. When you think of sports media personalities in America, he's pretty high up on that list, if not at the top of it. But that clip,
that's what I'm gonna go with.
We'll get back to that clip at the end, because it really just shows how sports media has changed. So in this episode, let's talk about the rise of Stephen A, how he's reshaped sports media, and how now sports media is reshaping him.
You actually thought y'all were gonna win some playoff games.
So first, a bit of backstory. After attending the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, Stephen A earned a basketball scholarship to Winston-Salem University in North Carolina. It was during this time that the journalistic side of him began to take shape. He wrote a column for the school newspaper arguing that the team's legendary coach, Clarence Gaines, should retire due to health issues. Now, Gaines ended up having a 47-year career at Winston-Salem State. He won an NCAA championship in 1964 and was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. If that column doesn't show Stephen A's ability to challenge the legendary of legendary people, I don't know what does. After he finished college, Stephen A began his career working for newspapers. He worked at the Winston-Salem Journal and the New York Daily News. But it was during his time at the Philadelphia Inquirer that really helped establish him as a rising star in sports media. He would end up spending the majority of his early career there, covering the 76ers and Allen Iverson. There's actually a bunch of drama that happened during this time. I won't get into it during this video. Anyway, he eventually got his own talk show at ESPN called Quite Frankly with Stephen A in 2005. It was during this format that Stephen A started interviewing athletes, allowing his personality to shine through, and something that he wasn't able to do previously. But before we get into the rest of the story, let's set the context for the state of sports media during this time. It was the early 2000s, a pivotal time for sports media. ESPN's website had launched in the mid-90s and forced newspapers and magazines to adapt their coverage to stand out from the typical play-by-play that you saw on TV and radio. Sports reporters had to provide more analysis, interviews, and just frankly entertainment value to engage readers beyond just recapping the games. It was the shifting landscape that set the stage for Stephen A. Smith's rise at ESPN. The network sought personalities who could deliver compelling and pretty in-your-face commentary. Now, while Stephen A. was thriving at ESPN, little did he know that in 2009, there were going to be reports that he might be leaving when his contract expired. Now, while all the details are still unclear, it seems that ESPN was offering him less money than his previous deal, and he felt that it was time to move on. Stephen A. said that during this time that it was a wonderful ride, that he had great memories, but he also hinted at the potential behind-the-scenes tension that made him feel that his job wasn't that secure. But this wasn't the first time that Stephen A. had considered leaving sports media altogether. He even considered pursuing a banking job early in his career before being convinced to stick it with journalism. But the story of Stephen A. at ESPN wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about this guy, Skip Bayless. You see, many people now know Stephen A. as the guy who runs the First Take show. But First Take actually started as a different name. It was called Cold Pizza when it launched in 2004. This show was created and hosted by Skip Bayless, who's also known for his provocative and hot take style of sports commentary. At some point, Stephen A. joined Cold Pizza as a regular contributor. Both of their styles meshed well, especially with Bayless saying some really crazy things. The two developed an on-air chemistry that was kind of unmatched in sports television at the time, and honestly, I kind of wish we could watch it right now in 2024. But in 2007, the program was rebranded and named First Take, along with a few other guests that they would have from time to time debating sports. And over the years, First Take became hugely popular. Eventually, Skip Bayless left ESPN in 2016 to join FS1. Maybe we'll make another video someday about that. That's a whole other topic. And Skip launched his Skip Undisputed show. This meant that Stephen A. was the sole remaining host of First Take. He took the show forward, bringing on new co-hosts like Max Kellerman, who isn't there now, and other people. First Take became one of the most watched and highly profiled programs on ESPN, mainly through Stephen A's ability to generate buzz, controversy, strong opinions, bring on guests, mix and match co-hosts, and all these are the key factors in the show's popularity and influence in the sports media landscape to this day. You always kind of wanted to see what Stephen A was going to say about the latest controversy in the NFL, or their non-stop conversation about who was going to win the MVP in the NBA. Now, it seems like these are the only things that they really talked about, but it worked. People watched it. But it was also during this time that we saw the rise of a few other things: sports creators. You see, the newer generation, let's say Gen Z, they weren't just watching shows on ESPN. I remember when I was a kid, I would come home and watch ESPN for hours. And over the years, that happened less and less. and I would often find myself just watching a few clips of First Take on YouTube. I don't even remember the last time I watched a full show. And forget about First Take, I just stopped watching all the other ESPN shows as well. And I'm sure I'm not the only one doing this. It wasn't just me or Gen Z, it was everybody. That's why I saw people like Pat McAfee grow their audience to crazy levels. Now sure, COVID and other factors probably impacted his growth as well, but the macro trends were there for this to happen. And many young fans, especially people that love watching sports like the NBA, didn't watch a lot of the games. They just started watching clips on Instagram, highlight reels, things of that nature. Things were just not the same anymore, and ESPN's grasp on the sports media market was just not there. We even started to see things like Manchester City signing a 16-year-old Fortnite player, investing in teams, leagues, owners, investing in things beyond the typical sports game. And you really saw the culmination of all of this when ESPN recently decided to fire some of their top-tier talent. People like Jeff Van Gundy, Suzy Kolber, Jalen Rose, Steve Young, Keyshawn Johnson, and Max Kellerman, who was the co-host of First Take with Stephen A. Now, ESPN and Disney says that this was part of a broader cost-cutting strategy by Disney, which slashed 7,000 jobs. But still, the backlash was real, especially since that right after they did that, they signed Pat McAfee to that $85 million 5-year contract. So it looked more and more like ESPN was shifting away from the more traditional programming to their more personality-driven YouTube-like content. They even had a recent video posted that just looked like a typical podcast, with Stephen A interviewing Jaylen Brown. We've sort of never seen a video like this posted by ESPN, but that's the reality of where this is going. Now back to Stephen A, he was existing this entire time, being pulled in all kinds of directions. On one hand, he's got the traditional sports media network that he has to appeal to, for which he's making millions of dollars. But on the other hand, he can see that the audience attention is quickly falling away from the traditional programming. And that's probably why Stephen A is venturing into other things beyond sports. Because generally speaking, Gen Z and younger audiences are gravitating more towards the creator and what the creator has to say rather than the topic from those creators. So naturally, people that like watching Stephen A on First Take are going to like watching Stephen A talk about a multitude of other things. This is why he's even hinted that he's looking for a late night show spot, maybe replacing someone like Jimmy Kimmel when his contract expires. It makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at the kind of content he's creating on his show. He's got a mix of interviews, commentary, reacting to tweets, sharing his hot take on random things beyond sports, and he's already sort of creating a late night show version, but on YouTube. And unfortunately for sports media and ESPN, these are the types of people that they have to compete with. They're literally competing with their own guy for attention. And those same people that are now watching the Stephen A. Smith show used to be that audience that would have watched 5 other clips from First Take, but now they're not. Even recently, before and after the election, he began expanding his media presence beyond sports. He made appearances on political shows like Fox News' Sean Hannity, To The View, and he's doing this on purpose while also maintaining that signature, yelling, unfiltered style that he has. And honestly, when you watch the Hannity show, you can see why he feels excited about entering this space, because A, he makes it known that he's not ideologically stuck in his ways, one way or the other. He knows that when you're trying to appeal to men and traditionally people that are maybe more right-wing or conservative in the sports space, you can't be if you have aspirations for entering late night or talking about politics or having your own show beyond ESPN, because that's where the money is. And B, he can just see that these people in politics and these kind of shows aren't used to the debate style that Stephen A's been doing for decades. There's a big gap in the market for him. And he can also sense the fact that the traditional sports media industry is dying in a way. So if you track Stephen A's rise in the sports media industry, it's quite remarkable. From his early days as a college journalist to his current status as one of the most, if not the most, recognizable and influential personalities in sports. The man's making athlete level salary for talking about sports, and it's crazy, and it's a testament to his work ethic. Even he understands that things are already changing or have already changed. And in order for him to compete, it's no longer so much about ESPN's First Take. It's about all the other things that he can do, like starting his own YouTube channel, entering politics, creating his own late night show that he can then leverage against ESPN, ABC, or Disney to get where he wants. And the sad reality for the traditional sports media, for these big companies, is that they have to compete with all these people, which makes their margins and business that much harder to execute. All right, I hope you liked this video. This was an in-depth on Stephen A, but you can see that this piece is much more than his story. It's about where sports media is heading. Now, it's going to be hard to predict how this plays out over the next few years. From a creator's approach, it makes sense. More people are going to be creating content on places like YouTube, and more people's attention will be going to those places. But the interesting part is going to be to see how these networks adapt. Right now, ESPN just threw money at the wall, $85 million to Pat McAfee, to see if they can solve that problem. That seems like a good bet for them. But what about the other sports media players? They might not have the money, nor can they find somebody as energetic as Pat McAfee is to the sports media world. So I think these networks are going to start looking more and more like mini YouTube channels combined into one. They'll start creating content like that because that's what the regular people want. We can already start to see it. Thanks for watching, and check out this video right here where we did a deep dive into why there's so much controversy surrounding the new Philadelphia 76ers stadium that's happening in the center of the city. Hope you like it.